Clay, I'd love to hear about how you arrived in Thailand, but why don't you first tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are and what you've been up to over the last handful of years?
Well, short version, because this could take
Don't
like
worry,
an
we'll,
hour
we'll
in
go back.
itself.
We'll go back to the beginning because I know like you're an ex-Navy guy, and then you get into performance coaching, and now you're in Thailand. So I want to hear it all.
Yeah, there's a bit to get to. Uh, in a nutshell, first generation Australian, born to immigrants, migrated there, and grew up in Perth in Western Australia, which
Where was your family from
South
previous to
Africa.
Australia? Okay.
Well, it's like long and convoluted. So South Africa, but if you go back a few generations, Australia and the Netherlands, and so like I'm just a mutt. I come from everywhere. When I left school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. My brother joined the Navy. He's like, "Yeah, man, like it's pretty good. I'm enjoying life. I'm fit. I'm happy. I get to travel. I get paid." I'm like, okay, sounds like a good idea. So I joined the Navy. I hated the Navy. My brother loved the Navy. So we're like
Mm,
chalk and cheese, like it was right up his alley. I just couldn't stand it. I thought it'd be a great idea to have a couple of Bloody Mary oyster shots while I was on duty, which is, clearly a smart thing to do when you're not supposed to drink at all. But me being Einstein level intelligent decided it doesn't apply to me. 30 minutes later, I'm with the MPs getting questioned. It's gone straight to the CO because like it's just gone all up the chain, right? They didn't keep it in house. They
mm,
do the complete opposite.
mm.
So me being my big fan of victimhood that I carried as a badge of honor, which I didn't even know I did for the longest part of my life up until 27,
Mm.
decided that they had betrayed my trust. For whatever reason, created this message, this underlying belief in my brain that I can't trust my department and they're just going to sell me out first chance they get.
Mm.
Even though it was all me, right? I get that now. I get it's so clear. But back then, I was like, "Oh, look at me, poor me. Oh, the world's against me." Blah blah blah. Like, no, man, you're a moron, and you did it. So that was like the start of my Navy career. Well, at being at sea anyway. And from then, there were like several incidents that started to happen along the way that kind of just reinforced that. And so I didn't really enjoy it. It was good. It's taught me a lot. It's definitely been a leverage point. But the actual Navy itself and the culture and everything, like it just wasn't for me.
So do you think that like after that your attitude just sort of changed and then these little things maybe that weren't like as big of a deal, you just didn't react to them the right way?
Oh, 100%. Yep. Yep. It 100% like it what's the word? It created like this jaded mentality where I started having this lens that was fractured. So everything's coming to me like, oh, no,
Yep.
you're doing this to get me. Oh, you're doing this. And so it just changed the whole perception. And yeah, to the point where I got back from Iraq and I had a bunch of leave left. And I just walked off the ship and although I didn't really discharge from the Navy, I just left. Like, I'm done. I don't want anything to do with this. And just walked off and never went back. And then started my
Mm,
career in oil and gas, which was basically like the Navy, but 3 times the pay, 6 times the time off. So the lifestyle went into overdrive and was partying and going crazy and traveling a lot. There was no soul to it. It was kind of soul destroying. I was getting paid exceptionally good money, like really good money. Can't bitch about that. There's
mm.
just no drive in the work. I was like, I need to do something else. This is just like soul sucking. Like missing time with. Didn't have kids at the time, but all my friends would miss time with their kids. They wouldn't see their kids grow up, and the kids would kind of turn into rat bags because they're never at home, so don't really have dad around. So they're used to just doing whatever they want. Then dad comes home and showers them with gifts, and dad goes away again. So
Mhm.
not that I actually wanted to start a family, but I was just like, there was just too much back and forth. I'm like, I want something that's more consistent. I didn't know what, but something. And then
Mm,
I ended up getting made redundant because back in the day, the US and OPEC started going into this production war. So the US started going after all the fracking. This is back when fracking first kicked off
mm,
because the oil price was so expensive. All these fracking wells were actually able to be done because the price of oil made it worthwhile. And so the US opened all this stuff up. And then to stop the US doing that, OPEC just started releasing oil. And the price of
mm.
oil went from like $130 a barrel. Don't quote me on this, it's around about that. And dropped down to something like $30 a barrel. within a couple of months. And
Mm.
this is like 2014, and there were thousands of rigs that just got mothballed and stacked and go, okay, we're done. Because they were too old or they're too out of date, and so they couldn't really afford to like pay crews and pay this and pay that, and like the industry just went 70% gone within the space of three
Jeez.
months. And that's how oil and gas is. It's also feast or famine. And I was something like, I'm just not interested in that either. Like, I wanted something that I was not necessarily that I'm in control of, because you're never in control of everything, right? You can't control all the macros in the environment with the country, but at least have some idea where I could like maybe go get more leads, or I could do this, I could, things to move in a direction. And I think that's the part that was soul sucking, because you put in all this work and all this effort, and at the end of the day, you're just another number. I'm like, okay, why am I doing this? This is like 2014, and there were thousands of rigs that just got mothballed and stacked and go, okay, we're done. Because they were too old or they're too out of date, and so they couldn't really afford to like pay crews and pay this and pay that, and like the industry just went 70% gone within the space of three
Jeez.
months. And that's how oil and gas is. It's also feast or famine. And I was something like, I'm just not interested in that either. Like, I wanted something that I was not necessarily that I'm in control of, because you're never in control of everything, right? You can't control all the macros in the environment with the country, but at least have some idea where I could like maybe go get more leads, or I could do this, I could, things to move in a direction. And I think that's the part that was soul sucking, because you put in all this work and all this effort, and at the end of the day, you're just another number. I'm like, okay, why am I doing this? And
Yeah.
and not only that, like I mean, you could argue that with the majority of businesses that you're just another number, right? Not in everyone, so we're clear, but in the majority, you're treated like just another number. And when you're giving up half of your life to be in the middle of the ocean, it's kind of adds weight to it.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, just such a big global industry too,
Mm-hmm.
and it just like those places you're talking about. It just touches so many parts of the world, but you don't ever really see it,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like me as an American, like I don't think I've ever seen an oil rig. Like I don't think I've literally ever seen an oil rig. Now I'm in like a certain area. There's like some natural gas that they do in like Ohio, Pennsylvania,
Yep.
but you're way out there. You're like out of sight of everyone. You're just like doing this thing so that everybody else can, charge their cell phone. Just it
That's
does
okay.
feel like it would be a very weird like disconnect from reality.
Well, I mean, it was no different, because my first real job, right? So I mean, I worked at KFC and McDonald's. I did a milk run. I did a paper run when I was little, right before I left
There you
school.
go.
But my first real job was the Navy, and I was spending 6 to 9 months away. So it wasn't that like it was just, I don't know, for whatever reason, for me, something changed. And I was like, this is just not enjoyable. Like, I'm getting the money and I'm showing up, and it's great. And I'm super grateful for that. And it's time for something different. And that was what it was about, right? I mean, like, people would have killed to be in the position that I was in. And I'm well aware of that. And so I don't want to say, oh, look, I'm ungrateful. Like, I was extremely grateful for it. And I just realized that it was time for something different and time for me to make a change.
Talk me through kind of what happens next as we're leading into that March of 2014.
So I got made redundant. I fly back home. My now ex-wife, but my wife at the time, was a Brazilian girl who I'd met working offshore. And she came back from work. She comes back, being the fiery Latina that she is. She's like, "What are you doing? You smell. Get off your ass. Go do something. What's wrong with you? Make something of your life." All right. Like, shook it up. I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do. I went and signed up for an NLP training, which a lot of people say is pseudoscience and it's a waste of time. It's just like, yep, not going to argue with you. That being said, out of that training, it like sparked something in me, and I felt different, and I felt things change. And so I left and came back, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And people noticed I was acting differently, doing things differently.
Mm.
And then I started using the techniques that I learned at that training on other people, and then just started a coaching business overnight. And where are we now? 11 years later, here we are.
Do you want to give like a one-on-one on NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and like just maybe what you learned briefly in that course, or maybe even why you were interested in that? It sounds like you wanted to kind of persuade people to do things that you wanted them to do, but
So the reason for taking NLP wasn't necessarily for that. It was more it had been a continuation. So when I was studying these language patterns, so I studied a guy. The first book I read was The Black Book of Persuasion by Rintu Basu, who's now passed on. He's in the Great Beyond. Then I read another book by his name's vanished from my brain. It was really big in the pickup scene for the what do you call those guys? Pickup
Pick up
artists.
the puas.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Puas. Yeah.
funny. I was just talking about that like on someone else's podcast earlier this week. Not that I know anything about it, but a really great book was written about it called The
The
Game
game.
by
Yeah.
Neil Strauss.
hmm
Great book. Whether or not you're into it, just entertaining read.
It's a highly entertaining read. He also does expose like one of the massive flaws there. So one of the guys he mentions in that book, oh,
Ross Jeffries?
thank
Talking
you.
about
Yep,
Ross Jeffries?
Ross
Yeah.
Jeffries, right?
Yeah.
I got his speed seduction book, and I was reading through that because that's got a bunch of language patterns in it as well. And so I was reading all this stuff, and NLP kept coming up in both books. So I was like, let's just go see what's in it. So I went and
Yeah,
did this
right.
NLP training, and it had nothing to do with pickup. It had nothing to do with persuasion. It was more therapeutic because the people they modeled in NLP were therapists. So they modeled Milton Erickson, who's like one of the godfathers of modern day. Well, he is the godfather of Ericksonian hypnosis, which is basically indirect hypnosis. So instead of me telling that you'll now close your eyes, you'll now do blah, 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 it's more making suggestions and then altering the tone of my voice so that I can, for lack of a better word, have a conversation with your conscious mind and your subconscious mind at the same time and create that kind of association to allow you to go in a trance. And he also got hypnosis off of the weird and wacky world and had it brought and recognized as like an actual medical process, which is why you can go see a psychiatrist and actually have hypnosis sessions, etc. And then there were a couple other people. So Fritz Perls for Gestalt therapy, Virginia Satir for family therapy and her language patterns. And there are a couple other people. So what they did is they went and took these amazing therapists who were getting better results than anyone else, and they started breaking down what they were doing and with the language and with how they're doing things. And so they started to build a set of techniques based off of their language that people could replicate and you could give to someone that had zero training, and these people could get amazing results that people weren't getting after a 3 or 4 year psychology degree. And so it became a very, very good diagnostic tool, but it's just a tool. And there are many people that don't really know how to use it. And if you ask anyone that's qualified psychologically, well, not anyone, there are some people that are very much like one of my trainers in NLP is, or let me rephrase, was an associate professor of psychology at one of the universities where he was, and he is a huge trainer in NLP, so he's a huge believer in it. But he's also got the psychological background as well, so it's a layer. By itself, it's got a lot of shortfalls, and a lot of people just use it like a mechanic. Like, oh, you've got this, so I'm going to do this technique. Or you got this, so I'm going to do this technique. And it's like a machine shop. But NLP was basically just a way of modeling excellence and figuring out a way to repeat that, breaking things down to their core patterns and then applying those core patterns in other contexts. So when it happened, like I just burst into tears. I had no idea what was going on. Like, what the hell? And that night, I had one of the best sleeps I've ever had in my entire life. I can't tell you what it was. I have no clue. I can't tell you what changed. I can't tell you what I let go of. Nothing. But I can tell you that something shifted. I felt something internally. I felt a lot less stress. There's a lot of fighters here, guys that want to be big and famous. And so I was fascinated by working with them and seeing what had happened to get them into the zone. Nothing has been as rewarding for me in terms of work as helping someone get through something that's debilitating for them. There was a very real potential that my coaching days were going to be finished within 3 weeks once I found out I need to have surgery on my eye, because the last time I had that surgery on my left eye 15 years ago, I went blind and I can't see out of it still.
So the book kind of centers around trust.
100%. It centers around how trust is not a feeling, how it's not a characteristic. And my view on trust is, I would say, pragmatic, and that trust is a process and it's on a spectrum. We stop paying attention. And so we put them as like in a little like safe box, if you will, and we get this representation that they're a safe person to be around. And then when they start deviating from the norm, our brain's like, oh no, Clay would never do that to us. No.
So what are the things that people can do to build trust amongst relationships, or just maintain that trust, or spot when trust is starting to slip?
Build trust is pretty simple. Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it.
Okay.
On top of that, mean what you say and say what you mean. When you educate yourself in what to listen for in terms of the language, what to see in terms of incongruent behaviors and the non-verbals, then you can start to go, oh, hang on a sec. Yeah, no, there's a couple of things. I need to pay attention. And so the whole trust trap idea is just about paying attention.
And I'm assuming the good news is you haven't lost your eyesight?
Yeah, that's why we're having this conversation. I can still see you. It's brilliant.
Yeah, I figured just, with how, mobile you look behind camera here, that you aren't fumbling around. Where's the camera? Where am I in space?
Yeah,
all right, Clay, thank you so much, man. This was great. And people, where should they catch your other stuff that you do?
What other stuff?
Well, you got your coaching. I'm not sure if that's still a big part. The Trust Trap, trusttrapbook.com is a good spot. And
that's the best place. Go to trusttrapbook.com. There's like a comment section there, or get in touch section. You can get in touch with me there. That's probably the best way. Or go at claymoffat.com will be the other one. The website itself is down, but my email hasn't changed. It's been my email for years.
Sweet, man. Thank you so much, Clay. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
Awesome, man.